Good evening, everybody, and welcome. It is a wonderful Monday night, and I say wonderful because it's finally warm where I'm at.
Here too.
I love the memes where it says, yeah, what is it, 48 degrees in Pennsylvania, and the guys out there in shorts and there's snow on the ground. That's what it feels like, but it's okay. We'll go for it. So my fellow Pennsylvanians know exactly what I'm meaning. But for everybody else, thank you very much for taking time to join us tonight. We are talking about some fun stuff.
Yeah, we're going to talk about.
I think we are. I think we are. But maybe I
Yeah,
just make that up.
no, the
Like I said that, and John just didn't say anything. I was like, maybe I
well,
got the
no,
wrong
I'm trying
memo.
to figure out how to get the. For some reason, I'm not. It's not changing the scenes properly here. I mean, as far as we're up and everything. Okay, for those of you watching it, it's going to look really funky for just a second here. You're going to see, and then, see, no, that's not right. Okay, I'm working on this, but anyway, we're going to talk tonight about creating unforgettable weddings, and because we're pretty much all three of us work weddings, and mine everyone forgets right away. Dan forgets his right away, but Cubby's the one that pays attention, and he so we're gonna talk about create some ideas and tips for creating these unforgettable events. There, finally, it is set. So our microphones have been there. It's been bouncing back and forth as I'm trying to clean this up. So I apologize for those of you but I wanted to try to get it so we were all three on the screen like we're supposed to be. So I think a lot of the creating a successful, unique event. Let's start with that. I think it starts in the as I was just talking to Troy and he was talking about kind of the pre-sales consultations. I think it's a big part of that. So let's kind of talk a little bit about what do you guys do when you're trying to find out if you should fire a couple or hire a couple. Cubby.
Okay, I fired a couple this weekend.
But that wasn't what we were going to talk about. But anyway,
Oh,
that pre-sales time, how do you start to develop that picture that could help you create an unforgettable event for them?
who do you want to
That's
start?
Cubby.
Well,
Okay, I'll start.
yeah, yeah.
Just building the excitement and talking to the bride, asking a lot of questions like what their vision is, and then sharing how that we can make all those things happen. And trying to stay up on like the latest trending topics, and DJing is not rocket science. I mean, it's how you do things. We all have the same renditions of Cool and the Gang and Celebration, Love Shack, How to Go, well, but it's what you do with them. It's how you MC. It's the games that you play or don't play. It's creating a moment and letting it breathe and not stepping on it. I mean, the best example of creating a moment and letting it is when Tiger Woods was getting ready to win um, his last Masters, and it was on the 18th hole, and the announcers didn't have to say anything. Everybody just knew what the moment was, and they watched him walk, and they let that moment just create that moment and let it breathe. So many times DJs want to steal that spotlight away from the couple, and you don't want to do that. You want to create the moment, let it breathe, and then and then share with them. But that is in a pre-sales call and then finding out all the different things.
And now you mentioned pre-sales call. Um, Dan, you'd like to try to meet with your couples quite. Do you meet before booking, or is it usually after booking, or how does that work for you?
I don't meet with them like I used to. It was there for the longest time. It was one of those things where, I mean, whether the meeting was Zoom or whether it was a phone call or something like that was a big part of what I was trying to do for the longest time, was really push that. And I don't want to say that's where Cubby and I disagree, because I know he's very much likes to get them on the phone or something, and I've been kind of backing off on that. Not because I want to back off on it, but because I almost feel like the couples that I've been reaching out to, I can get that communication going via email, and I can get a lot of the questions that I'm going to ask to start with. And then I start to feel them out. And if I get kind of an inkling that, hey, let's have this phone call, or let's have this Zoom call or something like that, then it opens up that door. Some of that also is I've been able to take advantage of kind of my lack of time
Mm-hmm.
to be able to commit to like a full on meeting. to just basically go, you know what, if I can squeeze an email here or there, I can squeeze a text message, a few different times, I can keep this communication going, even if I don't have the ability to have a full on sit down attention meeting the entire time. So I like to get those to have that conversation just in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So with mine though, kind of to what Cubby says, I don't talk so much about, and I'm sure you don't, Cubby. I'm just with the way I was hearing, like you were talking about, these are things that we're doing and these are we're keeping up with the trends. I really just to get the idea of what I'm going to need or if I'm going to be that person for them is I start to get a picture of what they want. What do you envision? What are the things that you like? What do you want? So a lot of us probably ask those questions when we're in that person. I'm just asking them in an email. And I usually just ask one and just kind of like let them breathe. Now if they're taking a day and a half to get back to me, then we're going to do something different. But I like to ask those questions of what exactly they're wanting and what do they see. And I try and look for those hidden pieces. I like stories. I do love stories from time to time. I do them different than maybe a lot of people do. Um, I like the opportunity to have a story. So I look for a chance for the couple to share their story with me. And then I latch on to that because not from a sales standpoint, but because I love that aspect of the weddings.
Sure.
And that if I got a couple that comes to me and has a story, then I know we're going to be able to create some cool moments throughout the day because if they'll share that story with me, then we can share it with their couple or we can share it with their guests.
And it'd be tough in a pre-booking atmosphere to really get. I mean, you can get a little of that information, but I'm guessing that level of information is something you get after the booking as you're going through the process, or
Well, to the detail that I'm going to share at a wedding, absolutely. But to hear their story, people like to talk about themselves,
okay.
right? They love to be able to share some things. So if I have a couple that's going, like after we've gone a couple back and forth and we start like immediately, how much do you charge? All right, so we get into that process, right? So, but what I end up doing is I kind of re or go a different direction and just be like, how'd you meet your fiance? And like, if I get a paragraph response, this is a couple who likes to share their story. If I get well, we met in high school. Okay. How would, tell me about the proposal. We went away on one weekend. Okay. I'm not getting a story from you. Either it's too soon in the process, which could be the deal, or they don't like to share that story. That doesn't mean that they're not going to be my couple, but they're not checking all the boxes yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're definitely not kind of where I want to be. And so from there it kind of directs, do I want to go with this, do I want to be at that venue for that day too, right? Like there's other things that kind of I can have an okay couple and have a venue I really like and I will take that time and time again. Or I can have a great couple and a venue I'm not so great at. Again, I would take that time and time again. But you give me meh on both, if suddenly they decide to ghost me, I'm not going to be upset.
Is Cubby's the story? Is that something that you really seek early on? Also,
Yeah. In my mentality, and I know, like I said, Dan likes to do the email thing. Mine is trying to get on the phone because I'm a talker. And if I can talk to them, they can hear my passion. I also know they're emailing 4 or 5 DJs in a row, and they're going to jump on the first call. The first person that wows them, they're probably going to book with, right? So I want to be that's why I like to strike while the iron's hot. And they can usually hear my passion, but I'm like, yeah, tell me about your big day. What are your visions? When was the last time you went to a wedding? What did you like? What did you didn't like? How soon was that? Well, it was 2 weeks ago. Well, why aren't you calling that DJ? You know what I'm saying? What did he do that what you weren't impressed about? Right? Why because if you went to a wedding and you thought the guy did a pretty good job, you'd probably reach out to that company or something. So I just start conversations. I'm like, well, tell me how you guys met, how the guys been dating, and like I said, John said, and they love, the Lord gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth to listen more than we should talk. So then once I get all that information is when I start sharing. I just customize it into what they want to hear
mm-hmm.
and what we can do. Not what they want to hear, but also what we can do.
Yeah, and I think
Which is
definitely a critical piece of what we can do, because even as in the last show there, Troy was talking about there's things that he's really good at and things that other people in their company are really good at, and that his company can service many different types of clients because of their diversity in abilities to perform and to be able to do different things. So yeah, because if you don't have it right, that's when you have to fire a couple.
That's if it's not in your wheelhouse, it's better to let it go
Better to
right
let it
now.
go. Yep, that's for sure.
Dan's looking lost. I'm sorry,
We'll talk to
Dan.
you about it after the show. After the
No,
show,
no.
Dan. We're not.
A disclaimer for those of you that I'm like sucking on cough drops tonight. So we're getting through tonight's show is with I might have a certain operator voice by the end of the
Yeah,
meeting.
that could be fun. That could be definitely fun. So the story is a big part of it, and while I agree with the story is kind of a cool thing, and I've had instances where people have had a really cool story I've been able to implement. It's been I've been finding more just likes and dislikes as far as what kind of things are they into, if they're into golf or if they're into fishing or if they're into that, and that has helped a little bit for some of my more unique events where we're outdoors and we have the ability to do different things compared to being into a venue where it's very structured in what we can do and what we can't do, and the venue doesn't want us to do anything off their schedule type of thing, which there are some of those venues that I've been playing at. This year, ironically, most of the weddings after coming home today, I looked and I'm fairly local and I'm doing unusual weddings. I'm doing a pole shed in one situation. I'm in a backyard at another situation. And in the past, when I've had those type of events, what the moment that it becomes where I can really create is when we are either sharing pictures back and forth of where they're thinking, and then we can start bouncing ideas back and forth, and then I can ask the questions to help figure out their story or figure out where the importance is. Or better yet, is walking the space. That they're going to take me on a tour and we're going to literally go walk. And one of them, we did a Zoom walk, and they walked me through where they wanted to put things, and we could do it. And the other times, we literally walked around and we're going to put the tent here, and we're going to have this over here, and I want to put the over here. And it's like, well, how about we do this, and then what's the flow going to be? And you can talk about a lot of different things to make sure that everything is going to be as comfortable and relaxed as possible, and not have it so it's just this weird, people spread over such a large area that they don't feel like they're part of the day, whatever. That's worked better for me. But that's just how it's going, for this year, last year, and this year is probably going to work. Next year could be a completely different story once again, that I'm in venues and it doesn't work.
And a disclaimer, every bride is different. Every bride, they're changing, they're getting younger. What's the price? So you've got to be able to roll with the punches with each and every couple, because every one of them is really going to be different what they're looking for.
Dan, how much pop culture, when it comes to, we've talked about music and such, and how pop culture can affect that. Does that come into when you're talking weddings and putting that together? Have you ever had that situation where people are like, yeah, I want this because this is the hot thing going on right now type of situation? And I don't really even know what that scenario would look like, but does pop culture play much of a role anymore when it comes to creating?
Not so much in the booking phase. That just doesn't seem to be. I think part of the thing is, unless it's something that's been a pop culture thing that's going to be more than just a flash in the pan, right? Like we're seeing like a major trend, and that would be the case that might bring it to the forefront. And I can't think of anything off the top of my head, that's really been like that thing where they've asked about it in the planning phase or in the booking phase. Because I think for a lot of my couples, at least for the longest time, it was a year and a half out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most of them recognized that those kind of things that they see and might be, oh, that's a cool idea. By the time it comes to my wedding, it's going to be old, right? So they don't want to even necessarily, I guess, ask about it at that point. During the planning phase, absolutely. I mean, that's the kind of thing like, oh, we saw this trend, we want to try this trend. Have you ever heard about it? Yeah, 6 months ago when the first couple brought it to my attention.
So then now you're talking that much of that type of discussion, you're getting within that 90 days or less.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's where most of them are recognizing those pop cultures, those trends, those viral videos, are going to come about, and that's where they're going to ask that.
Mm-hmm.
Unless the only place I could see where that might be different, and again, I can't think of a specific example, but if it would involve something that would be kind of major. But again, most of them, that's not at their forefront of their thought because at the booking, they're too far out, I think, to really to recognize that it still would be relevant by the time their wedding comes around.
Yeah, that would be definitely a good point. Cubby
One
is,
thing.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Where does it come into, the discussion of maybe pop culture desires from your couples? Does it fit in somewhere with you?
Yeah, a lot of it was like our mixing style. And I talked to him about our mixing style. And it's not like we're a Spinelli short edit wordplay type. We are short edit, but we're not super short edit where it's like a 45-second rollout type
Mm-hmm.
short edit. We're more of a one chorus in, two chorus out type thing. To explain to him that there's a lot of DJs in my market that literally just bring a laptop and a mixer and they autoplay it, and so they don't have that opportunity to short edit Love Shack from a 4-minute song to 2 minutes, or whatever. And I share with my couple that that's what we do. We like to keep the energy high on the dance floor by short editing some of those songs. um and so that's, I know that's real big when they look at wedding videos, and they look at people like Spinelli and other DJs that are trending on TikTok and Instagram, how they do that wordplay and keeping the edits short and fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what they're looking for, because of course everybody takes a video with a packed dance floor. Nobody takes a video with an empty dance floor. So they think that really sets the tone for their wedding, because oh my God, there's thousands of videos with packed dance floors, and that's what I want.
Mm-hmm.
But my family is a bunch of 50, 60-year-olds and they don't dance.
Sure.
And you're supposed to make that happen
Yeah,
somehow.
magically.
Yeah.
Wave a wand. But when you've got a bride who's like, say she saw something at a wedding last year and she's like, yeah, I really want to do that. Is that usually a discussion then you have when you're doing those initial questioning? Or is it something that when you're doing your planning sessions, that's really where you hone into their specific desires and finish up the plans for the day?
Who are you asking, me or Dan?
You.
Okay. Yeah, if they bring it up in the consultation, I'll see what the DJ did. And again, as I shared earlier, there's not a lot of things that's trending or new in DJing.
Yeah.
So it's probably something I did a lot of years ago, and could do it again. Or if it's nothing that I haven't seen, I'm like, well, that's really interesting. How did he do that? What was his end result? How did he close it? Yeah, we could do that. And I'll have to research a little bit more. But there's, again, not a lot of things that are super, super new that's happening.
Right.
And Dave brought up a good point in the chat. He mentioned dancing on the clouds, and I think there's some equipment things that are kind of fit into that, right? I thought of like photo booth. I thought about dancing on the clouds, and I see where some of that occasionally gets asked in the planning process. I don't know if it doesn't get asked for me because my clients don't necessarily want it, or if they know I don't offer it. I don't know. It's like never really been a question for a couple for me. You take that for whatever it's worth. But that would be about the extent where I would see maybe some of those coming into play. But that becomes a quick question about equipment and offering a service that's different than necessarily what you can bring about otherwise.
And I over the years of performing, there have been times where it's like, oh, we saw something really cool last week or 2 weeks ago, as we're getting within a month of the wedding. But I would 9 chances out of 10, I probably have someone who's asking for something. This is something we used to do back in the day, and we were wondering, could you do that? And it's like, oh, what was that? Oh, we had this big bucket, and then the guy got in it, and then he danced, and it was great, and we all had fun with it. Oh, the wash tub dance. Oh yes, just
that must be that's a Midwest thing.
That's
there,
a
Dan.
Midwest thing. Yeah.
It is country.
Yeah, unmarried older siblings, typically the guys, would dance in a wash tub, and the women would come out and dance with them in the wash tub, depending upon the situation. Sometimes they came out and they throw quarters in there and they dance like a dollar dance type of things with the wash tub. And there have been times where they've come out with green and stick it in their tuxedo pants like a G-string. It's great. Wash tub dance, yeah.
You dusted that one off from a long time ago.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Again, it came up, it was literally last summer. Someone's like, wait, there was this thing and we wanted to. again, I have more things like from a flashback for lack of a better way to describe it than someone coming and saying, so there's this TikTok thing and I'd really like to try this thing. Yeah, no, that very seldom
It's
happens.
so old you can bring it back,
Yeah.
like like just like chocolate fountains or
I
something.
was thinking,
Or
my goal is, I want to get that chocolate fountain out. I want to use cheese, have it cheesy because, that way if you forget to wash it, after a few days, then you got Limburger cheese.
we had one. No, we had one at a wedding that was chips and queso. They
Oh,
had queso dip coming out of the fountain.
see, that would be
It was
kind of
amazing.
that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, but yeah, going back to things like Dancing in the Clouds, the Cold Sparks machines, anybody can do that, right? All they have to do is buy and match it. Now you match another company within your market. It's what your talent is. It's your mixing. It's your hosting. It's the memories you're gonna bring. Because let's face it, as I shared earlier, we all have the same songs. But I had a guy come with me and goes, I just bought this new light. It's the coolest thing. It's gonna set me apart in my market. That light's not gonna do a thing for you. It's what your talent is. Nobody's gonna remember that light. They may think that's cool, but nobody's gonna book you. If you suck otherwise, nobody's gonna book you.
Mm-hmm.
But it is something that could be brought up at it.
Right. Oh
If
yeah.
for the right, to the right client or to the right person who sees it, something, not necessarily saying the light thing, but those Cold Sparks, those, the Dancing on the Cloud, like, can you create this? Like, I could see
Yeah.
that being asked, and seeing that from that standpoint. So there is the room for that, but I don't, it's not happened to me. Dave says it used to, when it was new, it was one of the first things that they would ask. Okay.
It's like Cold Sparks. Most recently, do you have guys have
Yeah.
Cold Sparks? And the Dancing Cloud is huge. It's just not. It's not big in the Midwest where I'm from. There's a couple guys locally that will let me borrow it if I need to. But yeah, I didn't invest in that either.
Yeah, I can't. I don't know if I've ever had anyone ask for any of those situations. Fogger Hazer, outside of high school dances about 5 to 10 years ago, when it was, we were to the point where we couldn't use them anymore. That's when high schools were like, so we really want a fogger for our dance. It's like, no, you can't have one at your school. Well, we're going to try to find a DJ who will bring one. Yeah. No, you don't understand. I'll bring one, but I can't use it at your school. Well, that's on you. We're going to find a different DJ who will. Okay, good luck.
And we get the $300 fine from the fire department for setting off the alarm, and the whole the dance shuts down.
The DJ will never be back. But anyway.
Yeah.
So the talent is a big part of it, and I think this is flashing back to talking with Troy. Troy, for those of you, Troy Miller was my first show tonight. He's a wrestler, an ex-wrestler, current wrestler, however you want to say it, but basically he's a semi-retired wrestler. And the persona he was able to create, and the performances and the way he was able to work an audience were things that he's been able to bring into, not so much the persona part of it, but the ability to work an audience and to hype people up and to get people fired up and going are some of the skills he brings with what he does. And because of him having that wrestling background and that bigger than life sports thing, it helps to create some very unique situations within his weddings. One of which was in Introduction, which is an area he talks about that he really enjoys, and that's a big part of his day. That's how I found Troy, because Troy was the guy that did that sports introduction that you guys saw me do a couple of years ago. He was the one who did it first. My couple from Minnesota saw him in Indiana do it. And they're like, we saw this really cool introduction, and we'd love to do something like that. And they described it to me, and it's like, that does sound pretty cool. It's like, just out of curiosity's sake, who was it? I'll find out, she says. And then about a half hour later, she messages me a name. Let me see what I can do. But it was based on that energy, and that was what he brings to the table. How much do you guys try to really, build that side of your business, the persona, the personality, so it has your thumbprint on it? Or is that something you guys don't really worry too terribly much about?
I want it to be my thumbprint for anything that I do. Every piece that I do throughout that day, I want it to be a reflection of who I am as a person. That's why I really struggle. The hot talk, I don't know, a couple of months ago was like, or maybe it was last year, was about explicit music and things like that.
Yep.
And I have a line that I don't cross, and it for my own listening service, my own listening preferences, right? I have the explicit filter put on Spotify, and you could call me a fuddy dud or whatever you want for that, but that's how I am.
Sure.
That's the line that I walk from my own personal beliefs. And so, it's difficult for me to kind of broach that or break that when it comes to working with a couple. So I, from that standpoint, I want it to be a reflection of who I am as a person.
Hmm.
Obviously, right, it's their vision, how they're doing it, those kind of things. But the elements that are, for lack of better terms, up to me or up to how I handle things, yeah, my personality and how who I am and how I talk and how I interact with both the couple as well as the guests, it needs to be um genuine. It needs to be you. It needs to be, because as Cubby said, otherwise you're no different than the person who's just down the block. And then therefore, why are you even in demand?
Hmm.
Like, why would anybody want you if they can get you from somebody else?
So how do you sell that? How do you sell yourself beyond beyond that? Okay, I've got the music and I've got all of the same things every other one. How do you convey that to people that what you're bringing to the table is going to be helping them create that vision they have for their day?
This is where this is where being your authentic self with your vendor people that you work with and that you like to work with helps tremendously,
Okay.
because I'm not just on a list for some places. I'm the one that they point on the list and say, this is the person you need to call. This is the person you need to get in touch with. You want to have them for your wedding. Because now it's not me really trying to sell. It's basically me trying to avoid, sticking a foot in my mouth, because the couple has already kind of learned about me from these other places, and it helps. They've done the selling, if you will, for me. Um, that's why I'm so much better with the ones where they're warm calls than I am for the ones that just find me on Google. I know my downside is not getting them on the phone call to be able to share my personality for my cold calls,
Hmm.
because they don't have that piece. They don't have that personality. I try and work it somewhat into the conversation. I try and, add some of those elements, but they're not going to read into the text what's there
Right.
if they don't want to read into the text what's there. So that's where it makes a big difference. But having that authentic self and always bring your A game with those vendors, and being that servant attitude and showing that you're the fun person, carries over so that when the clients hear about you, it's not just you need to call Dan. No, it's like, you need to call Dan. Like, that's who we want here. That's who you need to have here.
Hmm. And Kevin, of course, because you're having those conversations and you're on the phone and you're actually, as you say, you're able to show that passion a little bit. It's helping you to paint a picture. But how do you and maybe you don't you keep from overwhelming them to some extent, because sometimes a personality and your excitement could be construed as overwhelming for some people. Or is that one of those things that if it happens, it's not the right client?
I'd have to feel it that way. If
Hmm.
they can't feel my energy and my passion, and I do get excited when I talk, not like shouting like I'm on a TV show trying to sell ShamWow. But it's sharing the passion with them and sharing what I can do with them and how we can make their day together a beautiful time, and using keywords and all the words that you're supposed to use, and not saying like I am right now, or stuttering or stammering, and stuff like that. Like I said, they can just feel that. Hopefully they can feel my passion. They've read the reviews. I like Dan, once you work with your vendors and they sell it for you, it just makes it really, really easy
Hmm.
to talk to them. If I get turned down, it's generally on price. It's like, man, we'd love to have you, but just don't have the budget type thing. Or I'm not available and they're not feel as comfortable with some of my other DJs. That is a downfall of being a multi-op sometimes, and being the lead of a multi-op. I
Sure.
need to find a salesperson, because anytime everybody talks to me, they all unfortunately want me,
Hmm.
or people that are similar to me. And I don't have sometimes those personalities.
That was the question I wanted to ask, and you kind of answered it, but I want to maybe if you can flesh a little bit about like you have that personality and you have that likability piece for when you get them on the phone. How do you, for lack of better terms, then translate that to one of your DJs then doing their event? Like I mean, I kind of we've had this conversation a little bit, so I already kind of have an understanding. But for everybody else, like how do you take it from yeah, get you on the phone. Hey, we're with blah blah blah. We're gonna work with George today. Like, how does that work for you?
Our clients know going into the booking that who's available, and they get to choose their DJ. All their bios are up on the website. They can set up calls if they want me to set up a call with Dan or John, and they can talk to the person, the DJ, get their personality. But it's basically saying what's a really nice, cool thing about our services. As soon as you book with us, you know who your DJ is going to be. They're off the table, right? Nobody else can book them. And they'll be your contact from the time you book with us till the last dance. So if you have any questions whatsoever, they are always right there, as am I, to answer any and all of your questions that you may have during the booking process and the planning process. So it's basically just like, look, I've trained them all. And, my youngest DJs, and again, I'm not huge at all. I got 5 DJs. The person that's been with me the shortest is my daughter, and it's 7 years. Everybody else has been DJing for 12 to 15 years and have also built their name up around the community as well and have just as equally as many good results. Um, some are just better at emceeing than others. Other people are better than mixing at others. And we're all trying to get to that same different level together. You know what I'm saying? As far as
How, Cubby, when you've got the other people and such, how do they get to get to that point where they can be creative with what they're doing for their performances? Do they spend much time talking to the clients? Do they meet with the clients? Or
oh yeah, so yeah, so like I said, they meet with them. I don't meet with them. They meet with them 4 to 6 weeks prior to the reception, so they have that synergy with their client. So when they show up, they're not looking for somebody wearing white. And I sell that in my process. It's like, with our company, you're going to know. So, unfortunately, some companies you may meet the DJ, they may call you, but they always know who you are. It's because you're wearing white and what type of day do you want with that? And so I share that because there are some companies that are multi-opset. They have no idea who the DJ is till the week of, and they'll call and confirm songs. Oh, so your first dance is this, and that's all they get.
So how do you encourage your staff? Obviously, they're experienced; they've been around and been with you for quite a while. But how do you encourage them to be creating things differently than they did last weekend? Type of a situation, because obviously it's too easy for us to say, "Oh, I'm gonna this song worked last weekend. These songs worked, and I can go rinse and repeat for this weekend." And as someone who doesn't live and breathe the businesses like you do all the time, that can be something that they can fall into. How do you keep that from happening and giving them the permission to be creative and doing different things for different clients?
Money, actually. I pay them really well. Um, like I said, I got a group of 5 great guys that all have the same passion as I do. They all go to shows when they can, and they can't take off their work. They all go to training. They all are on the chat boards. They're all watching videos, and then we meet once a quarter. We go to dinner and we update libraries, and well, what'd you do? What songs are working for you this weekend? Or especially my daughter, who's 28, who's really up on really new music that's trending before it hits.
Sure.
So she's and because the brides are getting younger, and all of us who've DJed for a lot of years are getting older, unfortunately, staying alive is just not hitting anymore. I mean, so she really keeps us up on music training, and we play little games sometimes with Jenga pieces. We'll put song titles on Jenga pieces, and you draw the Jenga piece, and then you have to come up with a 5-song set out of the Jenga pieces that you got. And then we'll talk about it. Like, so it might be a slow song, or what it might be a couple country, it might be, you have no idea what you're going to draw because it's on a Jenga piece on a piece of paper. And then that's how we just kind of train and talk about sets, or what would you do, or how would you do it differently, type things.
Yeah, just really that continuing, for lack of a better way to describe it, continuing education.
You got to. I mean, doctors do it, teachers do it. Why can't we as DJs, even though it's a part-time job? And these guys are doing 35 to 40 weddings, not only working full-time 40 hours. I appreciate them, but I also appreciate their passion.
Dan, where do you find obviously Cubby's getting some feedback and inspiration from his team. You as a single op, where do you have that Mike? Turn the mic on.
Yeah, he was coughing.
There we
Yeah,
go.
sorry, I just realized that. I was like, I started talking, and I was like, oh yeah, they're not hearing me.
Yeah,
I
that
just
was
rely
good.
on you guys, and that's my downfall. It really is. No, in all seriousness, like, so I think it's important to have a group of friends, especially if you're in a single op type of situation, to have a group of friends that you can rely on, that you can have a group chat with. And these are people that you're going to be legitimately, legitimately friends with. And so I've got, I've got Keith who's right around the corner for me, and we chat, a couple times a week. Sometimes he'll razz me about something I post, and sometimes we'll, hey, did you hear about this? Or you talk about that. I've got my buddies up in Erie who we have like our own like little group chat situation, and we talk about everything from music to trends to the latest gear that we dropped and how we want it but we don't want it, and all that kind of good stuff that goes into it. And I think that's important. You need to have a sounding board. Like, you cannot be in your own little hole, and ignore everything that's out there. And I think that's why sometimes the Facebook groups kind of get geared in a certain direction, because like, you want to ask a question, but it was asked, and but you want to ask it in a different way, or you think you want to ask it a different way. But these people aren't like your buddies. They aren't your friends that you've hung out with, and understand that you're not asking the same question that was asked a week ago,
Mm-hmm.
that you didn't even see. And so that's why I think sometimes those get misconstrued. But it's important to have a group of friends, whether they're local or whether they're a bit further off, that you can just talk with, and joke around with, and throw those different ideas out, and not just be all business, but yet talk business when you need to.
One of the one of the groups, we've got our chill room, of course, which goes on after this. Actually, there's some people in there right now. DJNTV.com/chill. But after one of the shows, there was one of the nights I jumped in, and there were some Canadian DJs that were in there. So I pulled out my cell phone to convert Canadian to English, and I was able to converse with them. It was pretty nice. But
Right.
we were able to. They were asking questions about the wedding I did, and I mentioned a couple of things, and it was kind of interesting because they played in essence this game of how would you do that, to some of the things. And how did you? Somebody asked about how I introduced the bride and groom, as far as what did I actually say for the give us a situation and what did you say. And it's the case. So it was an upbeat situation, and I said da 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 da, and then they each were like, when I do that, I say something like this, and just the sharing back and forth, and having that conversation was actually kind of enlightening. And you sometimes can learn, and sometimes you hear for something from someone, and you're like, oh gosh, I think there's always a bigger idiot in the room than me, type of thing. But it's that experience, or that ability to have other people's experiences and share those, is just can be incredibly valuable. And it helps because now the next time I go into a situation, I might have that couple that fits maybe one of those other ideas a lot better, and I can say, hey, what do you think of this?
One of the things that I noticed, I started to notice as I went to the trade shows, and as I, was in some of the different groups and stuff, was just how different weddings are done. Even as short as 2 hours away, let alone on the other side of the country.
Mm-hmm.
And so recognizing that that's different has really been kind of cool, because what ends up happening is when I get a couple that wants to do something different, all that I have to do is kind of suggest an idea that's happening on the other side of the country. And it's suddenly like, hey, that's actually a good idea. Let's run with that. Or, like a venue or some other constraint kind of creates an issue for us. I'm like, well, you know what? We don't have to do it this way. Yes, that's what we've done in this area. If the venue is going to give us some flexibility, we could try this, this, and this. And having those conversations, or being aware of some of what those trends are in other areas, opens up that opportunity. And I'll use Mick Walter as one of the examples. He preaches the idea of like the dance set. You got 20 minutes, throw a dance set on. And I was doing a wedding, maybe a year and a half ago now, and the everything seemed to be going great except for suddenly we had to like stall, like we had to waste some time because dinner wasn't ready. It was supposed to be ready.
Mm-hmm.
We thought it'd be ready, but then it wasn't. And it was like I was like, well, how much time are we talking? And like, yeah, maybe 20 minutes. How about we just throw in a little dance set? Let's get them up, get them moving. They won't even notice. And it's a good thing we did because that 15 minutes turned into 40.
Mm.
Oh,
And had we just been like playing background music, people would have gotten pretty bored pretty quick. So just taking advantage of like this is another way that things can happen. And guess what? The world's not going to end because the wedding was done differently than every other wedding you did that year. So just be aware that even just the order of how things go can be switched up, and being aware helps.
but you saved their day by
Yeah.
doing that. You know what I'm saying? And then you become the superhero because you saved their day by coming with that great, idea and in the middle of a conflict.
I think it was at minute 16 where he then took and
You
the
know he
S,
did.
yeah, the S on the chest, and
The
dun, dun, dun.
DC coming right out.
Yeah, there you go.
DC baby.
Yeah, yeah,
DC.
yeah. All right. But I think that's a great little example because part of creating and doing something unforgettable at a wedding sometimes is just by being in the moment at that moment when you can do something and using these skills that we've honed and the skills, the doing the what would Cubby do when something happens on the dance floor, and then you go and you do something very creative and fun and clever. What would Cubby do? That's kind of a big thing,
Well, I'm gonna make bracelets. W's.
What would Cubby do?
WWCD.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Send the first one to you, Dan.
Yeah, send him two. That way he can't. He's got one on each wrist.
Yeah,
So
one for each wrist.
yeah, so that
Get
way
one for his wife. Just kidding. Have your kids wearing them,
the
the whole family.
Everybody's got. Everyone's gonna. It's gonna be.
We already
Bracelets
say
for
it all the
everybody.
time, so might as well just give them a bracelet to display it.
Just kidding.
Oh yes, you're seeing my robot thing. That's from back when my son was in robotics here locally here. Clayton saw that. So for someone who is new, and if you could give them one tip or one area in which that they could kind of focus on with this upcoming wedding season, on ways that they can be creating more unique events from week to week. That's what I want you guys to talk about. Each one, we're going to pick one, and I'm going to start because then I can get. I want to just kind of go. My favorite is actually the whole being in the moment. When Todd Mitchum came out, and his very first message was that whole play and to be in the moment, kind of doing that like that improv thing where it's the seeing something going on and reacting to it and having fun with it and playing with it. And I utilize those skills a lot with what I do. And it makes a huge difference when you can be in that moment and be able to do that. Now, that's a skill that doesn't happen automatically, and you're going to have sometimes where something flubs and you're going to be feeling a little foolish, and sometimes things go really well. But it's one of those areas that I spend time practicing on my children, and when I make a fool of myself in front of my children, they're like, oh, that's just Dad. But every once in a while, you do something and that, trying to be that, using that kind of improv skill can be, that it works. And you can say, yeah, I can take that skill. And I feel comfortable enough using that skill to, when a groomsman does something weird, I can build off that instead of missing that opportunity to make that moment. So improv and being in a moment can really help create something unique. Okay. Next. Who's got something?
Go ahead, Cubby.
All right. So I was going to say watch DJN-TV. And I'm not saying that as a plug for us, but educate yourself. And educate yourself by either going to a trade show, and if you're at a trade show, do some mic classes and educate yourself to make yourself a better MC. When you're creating those moments, you've got to be, I think, a great MC performer. Nobody's going to know if you mix a song wrong. Nobody's going to know if you're off beats per minute. They're not going to remember that 3 years now. But they are going to know your voice and the way that your energy and the passion that you have at your receptions. The reason I say watch DJN-TV, is because a lot of those Facebook groups are like a rocking chair. They're going to keep you busy, but you're not going to go anywhere. Um, what is their purpose? Are they there to sell you something, or just is it just like a swinging contest, blank swinging contest, right? Um, go to websites that are actually educating you. Chat boards are fun, but they're just getting nasty out there, and you're not going to learn. There's some nuggets, but you have to search really, really hard. It's like trying to find gold in California right now. It's hard. But educate yourself, get yourself to be a better person, and find your passion.
I'm gonna go a different direction with what I'm going to say, but I'm going to kind of put those two ideas together for a brief second. Because if you work on your abilities to be a better MC, when you have to think about the ideas of how to be in the moment, those skills are going to come out better. You know what I mean? Like
Very true.
if you're just being authentic by yourself, or if you're just being in the moment with what's going on, that and you don't have kind of the training to back up like how to present that, it's going to be an idea that's not going to hit the same way. And so having some of that training, having some of those abilities to work on those MC pieces also allows you to kind of free up parts of your brain to then think more creatively.
Good point.
But my particular one is to be authentic. I mentioned that earlier, and being exactly who you are around the other vendors, around everybody, and keeping that positive servant attitude is really going to help pay those dividends. It's going to be hard because if you're new, you're not going to have a bunch of events that possibly make that opportunity to be there. But when you do, that's going to start playing forward, right? I think most of us recognize that our best leads come from recommendations, whether it's other people, whether it's vendors, wherever that is. That word of mouth is gold. So the more ways that you can think to foster that, the more ways that you're going to get those events a little bit easier, a little bit smoother, and be able to have those clients that you want. And again, also have those clients that are your ideal clients, the clients you want to work with week in and week out.
Excellent. Good stuff, guys. Good stuff. Thank you. Let's see. Up next, the chill room, djntv.com/chill will be going. There's a crew in there. Go in there and have fun and learn from each other. Ask questions. That's the best. As Cubby said, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth and 2 nostrils. Sniff people. It helps.
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't that what he said? I thought that was what
If
he
you
said.
can get close enough, yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So hang on. Let me try it again. He got two ears, 1 mouth, 2 nostrils, and a tongue. Lick people. That's what he said. Lick people.
Yeah.
I knew it was in there somewhere. Yeah.
Just got to get to it.
Yeah. I knew there was a message there for somewhere. So let's see. Who do I got? Oh, tomorrow
That's your
night.
authentic self. That is not what I meant.
Oh. Well, I guess we'll have to redo the whole show now. So tomorrow night, DJ Superfly is going to be joining me for the first show tomorrow evening. DJ Superfly is he's been very involved with building his business, and what we're going to be talking about actually is that he was a demonstrator with Pioneer and doing some different things with Pioneer gear. And he has traveled around. He's opened up for a lot of acts through the upper Midwest, and he's a very good mixing DJ. He's done some videos and such. Then he has recently been creating more work within his business and expanding his business and adding things to his business and to take it in different directions into production and things. And we're going to kind of dig into that a little bit about how a young man from Rochester, Minnesota, has taken his company to a couple of notches above where he was before with his business. So, good guy. Ivan is a great young man, and it'll be kind of fun to talk to him tomorrow night. And in the second show, Ben Stowe, tomorrow night, we're going to be talking about speaker stands. I've had some people asking for some quality speaker stands, and what would Ben recommend for that? And then I don't remember whatever the second topic is, because we have two topics each week. And he's going to be talking speaker stands and in woofers. There was a question about subwoofers. Why some subwoofers can, there's such a discrepancy between subwoofers. What is, those actual cones? Why is a 12-inch here and a 12-inch there can be completely different? And Ben's going to dig into that. That's going to get a little technical. There's going to be pictures. There's going to be cutaways. There's going to be talk of ice cream. I mean, we're just we're covering the bases. So that'll be tomorrow night at 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock Central, and then take it from there. So
It was a different kind of cone, John. Just saying.
oh, what? That was an ice cream cone?
Oh.
But we always talk ice cream. It's got to be a cone. Okay, fine. All right, take us home, Dan.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in tonight, whether you're new, whether you're established. Hopefully this is some of those tips that you can rely on to hopefully help you have a much better 2025 than anything you've ever done before. We appreciate you. We thank you. And we all hope you have a great night. Bye, everybody.
Bye.